despite the floods late last year that hit severely the industrial estates in Thailand, including many Japanese manufacturers. This, particularly Southeast Asian countries, still remains attractive to Japanese manufacturers and investors. The president of Japan External Trade Organization, or Jetro, in Bangkok has more to say.
Yeah, Mr. Iuichi, is Thailand still considered an attractive destination for manufacturers and investors?
I think so. Actually, Thailand has a well-developed infrastructure like road system, port system, and so on. And at the same time, Thailand has developed for many years good supporting industries like auto parts industries. At the same time, the government offers good incentives for investors. And above all, Thailand has good human resources, skilled and unskilled.
What kind of incentives would you say the government provides?
For example, Board of Investment, BOI, they offer tax exemptions or other relaxation of regulations and so on, so that they can attract more investors, especially in the manufacturing industry.
Besides Thailand, the Jetro president also mentioned the prospect of investment by Japanese manufacturers in other ASEAN countries.
What about for other ASEAN countries? Are there any other ASEAN countries that seem to be attractive also for Japanese manufacturers? For example, there are reports that Japanese manufacturers are moving to the Philippines because there's because of the English-speaking labor there, and because it's also low cost. What ASEAN countries are attractive right now?
Yes, the Philippines is another favorite destination of investors now, I think. Especially as you said, there are many English speakers, as well as anyway affluent labor force there, and the labor cost is cheaper than in Thailand. And at the same time, the infrastructure is getting better, stability, there's more political stability there. So it's another favorite destination, especially for electronics industries or electric industries.
What about for Myanmar, especially it's opening its economy?
Yes, Myanmar has a huge potential, of course. At the same time, we want to see more development of the hard infrastructure and also soft infrastructure. Hard infrastructure, I mean, for example, power supply, water supply, transportation and logistics. And as for the soft infrastructure like financial system, system about investment and taxation and so on. But yeah, there's a huge potential there, so many investors are looking at it. At the same time, after the flooding in Thailand last year, I think investors reviewed their resource allocation in this area, in this region. Finally, most investors see Thailand as a favorite destination again. At the same time, some try to spread their risk of resource allocation in this region. Like some shifted their operation, some part of their operation to the Philippines or Malaysia again, or Vietnam and so on. At the same time, Indonesia is another very favorite destination now because of the huge domestic market, which is growing now.
Currently, Thailand still attracts smaller Japanese companies in the supply parts, whose specialization focusing on the parts. Well, although confidence has returned from the floods, manufacturers, either from Japan or other nations, are still waiting for concrete actions from the Thai government, and that is to make a steady water management plan.
Would you say there was a lot of relocation after the floods last year?
Well, most companies try to stay there because of the people. Because as you know, Japanese companies put much importance on the people. Especially many companies have been operating here in Thailand for 10 years, 20 years and more. And they have trained a lot of people. And they don't want to quit, cut those labor force. So they want to keep them, and so they have tried to stay in Thailand, especially in the same area. But at the same time, they have to address the risk of the future natural disaster. So in terms of the expansion, some may relocate to other part of the Thailand or in other part of the region.
Well, from the floods last year, has confidence been back for Japanese manufacturers and investors?
Well, Thailand still attracts investment, especially it attracts more smaller companies from Japan, which would like to supply their parts to automobile manufacturers, for example, and as well as other companies in the service sectors or other machineries and so on. At the same time, they want to see more implementation of the flood prevention measures in this country. Yeah. I'm sure the government is trying their best efforts, but at the same time, they want to see more, real progress.
Okay. So what is the point of concern for the Thai government regarding the flood prevention measures? Are most manufacturers satisfied?
Actually, yes, I think Thai government has decided on various measures and budgeting very quickly. At the same time, many investors want to see steady and maybe quick implementation of those plans, because water management takes long years. Even in Japan, it takes dozens of years to make progress in the water management. Still, we see some disasters. So I hope the government will implement those plans steadily.
Have factories now returned to full capacity since the floods?
Well, actually, industries are very resilient, and they have recovered their production, maybe partly by alternative production in other part of the region or in other part of the Thailand. To restore the supply chain as quickly as possible. So they have recovered mostly, but of course some factories in the region, flooded by last year, they are still struggling to recover, waiting for the machines to come, some of them. Yes, but at the same time, in total, they have recovered very quickly.
Coming back after the break, the Jetro president talks about exports from Thailand.